So how do marketers know customers and their needs, right? So that's the given discussion topic. One thing I remember, the great Steve Jobs, I think he's the only person who can live away with the fact that he doesn't need to know the customer, right? He said, I'll go create a product and then customers will come for it. The rest all is an exception. So I think we all fall under the exception of the other side. With that, just a couple of opening thoughts. The last 20-25 years of my association in the IT industry, various things. I also come from a lot of tech, very engineering background. While I was never a born marketer. What I'm trying to draw and reflect upon is the genesis of IT services industry by itself, before the SaaS and the product wave took off in India, itself has a correlation with this topic, right? So because of the conventional way of writing code, understanding the needs of the country, if you all recollect 20 years ago, someone like a business analyst will fly to the US and they will gather customer requirements. This is in engineering, not necessarily as a marketer, but it's the same. Someone would go, in this case the customer is actually an engineering firm or the large Fortune 500 company that you write a piece of code or develop an application, but you still are doing the same thing. You're actually trying to understand end user requirements. I mean, depending on those days context, you used to write a flowchart, you used to write a diagram, you should probably author it well, and then the BRDs were born, the business requirements document, and people come back and then develop. So in a way, it also figured out that when this whole transition of the industry itself, by nature, took it into consideration that you don't need to really meet the customer. But as increasingly software or technology became mainstream, the number of combinations that you would actually have to understand, both as an engineering leader or as a marketing leader, tremendously puts an onus that the best thing is to meet the customer. As they said, I recently met someone from Hindustan Lever, and he's not into, he just, 𝗣،𝗲𝗶 That's what he asked. He was actually asking someone, a fresher, 𝗣،𝗲𝗶 He said, go on the field, sell it. That's it. That's the best schooling, right? So if you all have gone to any of these conventional schools, FMCG companies, it's the inverse. You are born literally to go and be on the field. So with these two paradigms, we just get into this topic and see what could be those experiences that this August panel has to share. And then anywhere you want just interrupt, and we will also open it up to see what dimensions you have. Right? So thanks all of you. Maybe I'll just go clockwise and then take up right? So this is interesting stuff. So why do you think marketers have to know customers? So the answer could be yes and no, but we'll see what the panel has to say. I have an opinion on that. I've been thinking that we can still do a lot of marketing actually without knowing the right and right. So why do you think marketers have to know customers?
Again, as you said, I don't know whether I should say yes or no to start with, but from my experience, I come from the other side of the table, from the delivery. I think from my perspective, it is definitely yes, because we need to understand, to take a real case scenario at home. When you understand what is the need of your family, then only you are going to actually cook what is needed for them. Right? In the same scenario, I think when I was there in delivery, I didn't know actually what is the marketing being doing. Correct? And then when I moved into the marketing role, I found that I have quite moved away from the customer. So it was very difficult for me to understand what is this customer want. And from the other side of the table, when I am meeting with my delivery leads whom I was peers with, I could actually have a differentiation of opinion between me and the other player who is working along with me. So it is very important that I understand what does my customer want, what does he want. And honestly, there are things which are in control for marketing. You are only facing the customer only, for example, in my experience, either through a customer visit or probably through an event. But in the other sense, if you are making allies with your delivery groups or your sales peers, right, that is where you will understand your customer more, and you will know what is the actual want of the customer and how can you personalize this requirements. That is why I think, according to me, it is very important that you understand what is your customer want.
No, that's the reason why I opened up with that example of we used to travel to the US to get those business because I saw you coming
It is
from
not was,
Delhi.
it is still there.
Yeah, definitely. But just because I understood that you came a lot of from delivery background, I just thought I'd give that example so that it will make you as much comfortable as all the marketers here. Right. So yeah, and fundamentally it's a no-brainer, right? So we need to know the customers. We'll chime in with some more examples as it flows through. But let me sort of go to Ankur. I think you also bring in a lot of enterprise product background, right? So,
yeah, so a lot of things which I will talk about will be with the perspective of working with product companies. So whether it can be a hardcore middleware technology to a LMS platform which became like a CM platform, or a SaaS which what Skillsoft provide, which is like Netflix or Gupta, right? Everything is a product. Whether you sell it on premise or now everything gets sold on a SaaS yearly per user basis. So a lot of that perspective will come. So to answer the question, I don't think there is a no at all. There is no option. The yes is yes. And I will also want to highlight that when you really start looking at this marketing role and where it starts, when you really look at a startup, who is the marketer? Actually, the founders or owners are the marketer, and they have identified a big need in the industry or the set of people which they are trying to solve. And when these organizations kind of grow up, so depending on the maturity of the organization, somewhere something else started other than something we got over, you get a sales guy after that, then you start getting a junior marketing resource, and you end up getting into a way when you have a CMO and a CRO, same level, but then you go beyond where marketing is much more powerful because they own the strategy, right? For a larger brand, sales guys are just operational guys with this, they just go and close. And that is a maturity which I've seen. I'm not saying Skillsoft is at that maturity, but Skillsoft has a maturity of a CRO and a CMO both reporting to CEO. Right? So that kind of level when you come in, you actually drive. A lot of my CMOs have been also CSO, the Chief Strategy Officers together. They work sometimes close hand in hand, which means that you have to be very, very close. And the marketing role does not start. Marketing role start a lot more, where the product development start happening even before that. A lot of the research work, lot of the wide spacing, what we need to create, because ultimately it is all about solving a particular problem. If there is no pain, there is no gain, we all know, right? But what problem you are trying to solve and how uniquely you are trying to solve, because every market you go, there is a crowding in some shape and form, right? So it is very, very important. And again, I'm not giving a lecture on the pragmatic marketing, I'm sure, but the whole marketing, the strategy, the products, that if they don't work in hand, obviously they have their own sections, but there is a good overlap which happens. And who owns that overlap? And then there are execution on the sales side, right? And a lot of times when you become a mature organization, marketing actually drives, there are two things which drive sales behavior, which I've seen. One is their commission plan. You put whatever in their commission plan, they will sell that thing. But how will you decide what you will put in the commission plan? Is the strategy, and that comes from the marketing. And so I run as parallelly with in the region heads, like the person who heads the APAC, has that discussion that where we are taking this GTM and how. And we will come to the how and what and all of that kind of thing. But absolutely yes. And product companies, there is no choice. Marketing actually leads in a lot of cases. Thank you. Sorry for long response.
No, I think you covered wide array of stuff. I think each of that fundamentally proves the thesis that you just ought to know the customer. I'll add a couple of thoughts to that after Sesha is done. Sesha, why don't you pick up some?
Sure. So I wish most of the organizations are at the level of maturity that you said, where marketing is able to decide the incentive plan for sales teams in terms of what to be sold and what not to be sold. But coming back to the point, right, Bharat spoke about he is shifting to an organization because it's a marketing-driven organization. Most of the times they're all sales-driven organizations. So to answer this question in terms of, first of all, why does the function marketing exist? It is, they call it sales enablement. It is to help sales succeed. When sales meet the numbers, the organization meets the numbers. And the crucial part there will be to get incremental revenue from existing clients or to add your net new business. That role is played by marketing. So if you come from that point of view, knowing your customer is the key, because I think most of the organizations are settling down for about 25% to 30% of win ratio. They think that is reasonable, that's the law of nature. But marketing, by knowing the customers well, can play a key role in terms of enhancing that percentage from the current levels of 25-30 to something even substantially beyond, which is not proven. It might differ from organization to organization, but that's one area where marketing can help drive these numbers up. The second thing is again the average deal size. If certain companies have been selling at 500K per deal or 600K, can we make it $1 million deal? I mean, we all heard the story where somebody goes to buy a pin to fish for the weekend and he ends up coming out buying a boat. So if you're a smart marketer who knew the needs of the customer to that level of finesse, maybe that's an area where you can also contribute towards enhancing the deal sizes a little bit. And I think somebody said marketing comes into the picture a little late into the game, right? Not at the time of the initial conversation at all. So if you are able to be part of plug-in ourselves in terms of shaping up the solution itself, because a lot of stated needs of customer, despite your business analyst going and documenting, coming back, you realize after a couple of iterations that what customer meant to tell you is very different. So there are stated needs and unstated needs. Most of the times, the knowledge repository stays with the delivery of the business analyst, doesn't come to marketing. But if you have proper knowledge management system, and if marketing can have a 2-in-a-box model or a 3-in-a-box model, where they get plugged into certain deal conversations, which used to happen in HCM, the biggest repository of knowledge always sits with the pre-sales team in most of the organizations. In fact, I've seen even business leaders going and asking them about specific individual profiles to the organization profile even before taking a client meeting. So to that extent, I've seen pre-sales teams do extensive research and then be on top of a lot of knowledge that's required to actually make a difference. So marketing can actually play a significant role there as well, and align themselves in the 2-in-a-box or 3-in-a-box with sales delivery. And then by getting to know the customer, help them pitch better to one is to enhance the deal size, second thing is to increase the winnability ratio, and third is to ensure that we are plugged into the deal cycle at the beginning itself. So we can even accelerate the deal, accelerate the pipeline wherever possible. So and I think the list goes on, but these are probably my opening comments to start.
Thanks. I think the unanimous answer is yes. Right? So let me just now add a different perspective. Obviously, the answer is yes. Here, I think we have all been discussing with the notion that the customer, in the sense, is the business to which you are selling. Apart from that, marketing has a phenomenal influence in the makeup of an enterprise brand. So, if you are a publicly limited company, your investor is your customer. For every market that we are here, our employee is our customer. Right? The talent branding that you do, if you have a customer there, which is your employee and the prospective employee who wants to join you. Investor, either it's a product or service company, the VC who wants to put in money, the publicly limited company, there's an investor who wants to buy your stock, or someone who wants to value you. There is a customer. The entire society is a customer for marketing. If you're doing a purposeful marketing, making your brand conscious of what its values are, right? The point I'm trying to emphasize is, in addition to all the points that the panel rightfully explained, marketing role, and it is rightly said, the CMO is the right-hand person to the CEO's office today. So the phenomenal amount of influence the global marketing charter constitutes today puts the fact that you ought to know not just the business customer, the entire stakeholders, the entire ecosystem consisting of employees, investors, society at large, your partners, and of course, the most important thing is the business customer. The absolute answer is yes. and we have the wherewithal to know that, right? That's why we are trained to be there, and we are one such function who can actually make or break the whole framework of an organization. The intent that you provide, the intent that you consume, the messaging that you do, and it puts a significant amount of onus and the ability to sort of influence your customers' behavior, right? It's also there. So one is reactive marketing, another is proactive. So you can also influence your customers' buying persona, right? By doing effective messaging, using marketing's art as well as science. So I think this thought I'll add those comments as well.
Just to add on, there is a beautiful quote by Peter Drucker, and I probably don't know it exactly, but what he has written was that marketing is not a department. It is what the external worlds look at your organization. So what you really own, what you really said, and this Peter Drucker saying that it is whatever we do is being looked as this organization. So our responsibilities are much more higher than just the department itself.
Yeah. So I'd like to use my famous, not famous, my favorite line that I generally tell. Yeah, like that thin thread that binds these beautiful flowers to make it a garland. The garland makes it look beautiful, but if the thread is not there, no matter how the flowers are, how beautiful are they, it's not purpose. Right? That significant is marketing. Anyway, so I think some of the stuff has been touched, but I see that we have people from SaaS, IT services, engineering organization. Particularly, what would you see the need to be customer centric in your segment, right? So there is a difference between knowing your customer and also being customer centric. There is a slight difference. I'll actually share a live example I experienced today morning. Once the panel finishes it, the role of marketing, the need to be customer centric. Maybe we'll come that order now. Sesha, you might want to start. We'll go this way.
So customer centricity, I don't think we need to elaborate that because that's pretty much understood. Because especially in cases of larger service providers, where you struggle to get empaneled with an enterprise customer for years together, there are a lot of aspirational logos that in case if you're not able to get in, I've seen cases where companies are acquired because you need those set of logos to be in your client list. Once you're in, when the client decides to float the next RFP for vendor consolidation, then whether are you still going to be in along with those preferred 3 or 5, or whether you're going to get knocked out and then another set of fresh people are going to come in. So when you have a risk of, despite your delivery excellence, because I think Sairam mentioned in the very first statement about those differentiation, especially in services, it's very hard to define differentiation because we used to talk in HCL that if you tie a band to the customer eyes and then rip off the logos from the websites of TCS, Infosys, Wipro, everybody, and then just have somebody voice over what the service offerings are, can anybody identify which comes from who? So that's the world we all live in. So I have the privilege of being part of an organization who try to create the differentiation through concepts which are based on relationships. Like you must have heard this relationship based on contract kind of differentiation which HCL use. Because that's the only way you can differentiate based on price point, but that happens probably towards the final stage of the deal cycle. So whether you get down selected to that level is a question. So when everybody in this world, you talk about digital engineering, I talk about digital engineering, you market the same, I market the same as an example. Where the differentiation has to come from the larger perception, the mind share you set with the customer, and most often the relationship or the client intimacy, which needs to be maintained so that in case of a situation of vendor consolidation, you are in a position to hang around with a combination of delivery excellence, the relationship that you maintain with the customer, that he doesn't want to give you up, he wants to give you a second chance. Mistakes will happen. So I think to maintain all this in the long term, that's why customer centricity becomes paramount important. And anything that you do today, you have to look at it from a customer point of view of this tomorrow. So in terms of what is that he and his industry are going through right now, what are the disruptive changes happening with specific industry today? And then how is the industry evolving? What are the challenges that they're fighting with? Is it regulatory compliance related issues if it's a financial services or a healthcare company, or is it your digital disruption, which is kind of eating away into their the way they used to function. Now they have to evolve, and then now if they don't provide those seamless, frictionless customer experiences, are they losing out to startups or the new so-called digital banks coming up? That's a big threat to the large banks in the US which have been existing for 100, 200 years now. The Bank of America and JPMCs, they're being threatened by the so-called digital native banks right now. So understanding what the customer is today and looking at the lens of the customer's view of tomorrow, if we can maintain that customer centricity, right, and talk their language and then help them achieve in their transition of where they are now to where they want to go, and then be aligned to their business. That customer centricity, along with everything else that I mentioned, which is the relationship quotient, your delivery excellence, the ability to innovate, and Ankur told about once you know the customer, you'll be able to come up with solutions which are more in tune with them rather than you coming with a product and then trying to force fit out them. All that falls into play with the customer centricity is the center of or as a nucleus of your entire strategy for the client.
Very well said.
Thank you. So, customer centricity, if you look at this keyword, this is probably value for a lot of companies. And especially in IT services, products, you can think about it, that customer centricity is a value. And I come from a learning company, right, where we talk about skills and things like that, mindset, shit, and have so many customers sitting there. Maybe the customer, other is the customer. So when we start looking at this is a behavior, right? And this behavior has to be across. It is not that, oh, this person, because this person talks to our customer, has to be customer centered. I think that's across given, right? Because even if you are a coder, you have to be customer centric. Otherwise, what will the impact of what your code or your testing is at the customer level? But coming to marketing, right? Coming to marketing, I think what I have seen from a centricity perspective is a lot more aligned to the GTMs. And a company like us, which is across 190 countries and stuff like that, in a product or service company, and different regions where the behavior of the customer is very different. The needs of the customer is very different. In India, if you look at compliance, might be not be a great thing, compliance skills and courses, versus something in Europe or something in North America, right? The type of customers are very, very different. Now, as a marketer, I have to start thinking about that. What is that market in that region looks like? How I am able to define that persona which you talked about. Ultimately, customer centricity is coming to this is the kind of segment which I am catering to, and these are the persona. And what I am doing, because sales guy is looking at dollars and he's trying to close a deal. For him, if the dollar fades out, or then the guy comes back, right, and do something else. And that's the behavior, and that's the expected behavior. Marketing thinks in a very different way, right? And there was a short story, if you give me like a 2 minute, or if you really look at them, and there's an example which I sometimes have quoted, that there was a company, Shisha come from Chennai, and my wife brought the product Chennai. So Chennai, there is a company who makes shoes. And they want to expand, so they expanded a bit in the land, and there was an island. And they sent a sales guy to go and see that if there is a market there. The guy went, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, roamed around, island, came back, so nothing. All tribal people, they don't wear shoes, nothing like that. You send a strategy or a marketing guy. What will be the answer? Same problem, same. The guy went and came back the same day. So it's a huge market. Nobody wears shoes there, nobody. That is the difference between the way marketing should behave as compared to sales. And that's where the opportunity, the white spacing. So that makes it, and that comes, white spacing is not coming just because of these many number of employees, but it is coming what kind of need, whether it's a visible need or whether it's a latent need. We all face that latent need. We were happy with our 55-inch TV, which we don't see, but our neighbor bought a 75-inch. Whether you have felt the need or latent it came out or your family has felt the need, there's something happened. That's where the buying will happen. So we have to, our customer centricity as a marketer I have seen is going a lot more deeper and understanding what problems you are trying to solve and give that in the hand of these salespeople. And again, very, very product way of thinking, and this gives you a different perspective. I know in IT services, definitely different. But the more you give this and tell them that if you do this, your dollar will become more clear, there is a better conversion which will happen. And the ADS will become higher and higher.
I think it doesn't really matter in a way whether it is product or service, customer centricity, understanding the inherent needs of the customer. Some are told and some are untold. I think untold is where marketing actually should come in. Your ability to sort of pick it up. If it is told, it's actually straight. If it is untold, is where you need a lot of experience, understanding, way to sort of extract that out.
And being a marketer, how do you think that I can tell a CHRO or a CLO of a large company that by implementing non-digital learning or workforce transformation, you are not doing your job, right? I can't tell that straight. So there is a way of doing it, and then after the CHRO or CLO is convinced, obviously you have CFO, you have CEO, you have Chief Sales Officer, and then CEO. Probably not CEO in a larger company, but then you have to still convince these people who have to spend, if not millions of dollars, then hundreds of thousands of dollars for their employee, right? And what they're missing out. Now you directly can't say, which means there is some sort of thought leadership, and that's where the content becomes so important. But what content? Is something which comes in only when you go deep dive. And this is a bunch of activity. This is research reports, this is your data, this is GAG meeting, this is bunch of 20 different things which you do to come up with, and that too is different meetings.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll just add up to what you said, Sai, about the untold requirements of the customer, plus what you said about what is that you want to sell. So we can only sell what they want, not what we have. For example, I'll just quote an example of a cloud migration project that came at the very beginning of when the cloud was coming into picture and everything. So the cloud migration was a problem statement, and then we approached the customer, and finally what we found is cloud migration is not his problem statement. He's worried about how can he migrate hundreds of his applications. Security was his problem. And I mean, that was one thing that he could not express in probably an email in one statement. But it will only come when these are untold requirements or inline requirements that we got. And this is happening only once you do a lot of consultation, lot of briefings that you take, data points that he said. You will have to collect all these data points plus have to validate it against the delivery needs, the delivery people who are in line with the customer day in and day out, with the sales people who are on the ground. So you collect your data points, you do your homework, but first of all, you first have to check what is his actual problem. But if I come to a marketing side, I'm not saying this is right or not, but if you take that as a problem statement, you will probably create a messaging or a content across how best Cyient can offer a cloud migration. But that is not the actual problem that your customer is looking for. He's worried about the safety, the compliance, how his old products can be migrated into the new platform. So if you understand the actual need of the customer, I think then it will be very easy. And that is where is customer centricity about it.
Absolutely. So I just relate it back to what I was saying. This is exactly what. So now in this case, there are two customers. So if I wear a marketing hat, for me first the delivery is the customer. If I listen to delivery first, I would not create that collateral, right? Because the problem itself is different. It's application migration, security. If I don't listen to my immediate customer and think that cloud migration was the problem, I would go and create all those collateral. So inherently it proves the fact that both first and second questions, the second points that we discussed are very important. One, I truly need to know who my customer is. And it's just not the business customer, the other stakeholder. The second thing is the ability. One thing that is constant in all the three dialogues was, I will use the word listening. The ability to listen is the fundamental thing for a marketer. That's where you'll be able to understand the told and the untold means. So today morning, I went through a transformative experience. So how many of you, I mean most of you might have done it, maybe I do Suganya Samriddhi savings account for my daughter, right? For some reason, I opened this account some 15 years ago in a post office near my house. So I have been going to post office once in a quarter, maybe. I go deposit cash. I've been asking this post office guy to whom I go, is there a way I can do online transfer? Because I don't want to go to the branch. For 13, 14, 15 years, this guy has been telling that it's happening, it's not happening, etc. Today I go to another post branch. I go there, gentleman there, I learned all customer centricity there today. He said, sir, I need 15 minutes of your time. It is absolutely, this is exactly what he said in normal Telugu. It is 100% online. And what he did was, he just understood how many times I go to post office, etc. And then there is this IBBP, post office bank app. You should have experienced the frictionlessness in that app. It exactly took 8 minutes for me to open an account, link it to my Sukanya Samriddhi, transfer it, balance is updated, I get an SMS. Absolutely digital, right? It's not about the tech part I'm talking. It is the customer centricity this postal manager demonstrated to me today. He literally pulled me and said that next time nunchi meer bank post office ki ravalsina avasaram ledhu 7 different. He told in Telugu that next time onwards you doesn't have to visit the post office, that's a promise. He used the word promise. That's what their brand market is, retail promise, etc. etc. I have the IDP card in my pocket right now. One, it was absolutely smooth, but the way he did that to me, the digital onboarding we call, the KYC we call, it's all customer journey, if you have to look at it, it was so smooth. And the way he did that to me, I think that was marketing, sales, everything put together. It was a wow factor, and after all that, when I said thanks, he apologized that, sir, I didn't know why my colleague has been telling you this. He did not even feel elated that I was appreciating him. He felt sorry that I was not knowing this. Me being so digitally savvy, I was ignorant of this, that's a different fact. But that for me was marketing, digital transformation, customer centricity, everything. Right? I think we covered all of that stuff today. So even in the SaaS product world, I'll give you another example. I think the next one is share some examples and insights from your experiences, right? So maybe I will open it up. So I used to work with a conversational AI company called Code.ai. So we used to write, I mean now generative AI has become mainstream, right? So imagine product marketers writing chat transcripts for a conversational bot. So we used to work with a very large Fortune 50 bank. So one of the assignments that my CEO, whom I have immense respect, gave me as a CMO was, not to my team, to me as a CMO was, write the entire transcript of a customer-facing enterprise bot that you would write in a normal NLP English language, which obviously NLP takes care, intuitive and all that stuff. So one of the construct statements I wrote there was, give me this statement of the last 50 transactions I did it at my petrol bunk. Just listen to this. I wrote that construct that, give me the last 50 transactions I did it at my petrol bunk. Please send it. It worked, but my CEO came back and said that, whom are you marketing to? In this case, it was a customer in North America. And I used the word petrol. No one in North America says it petrol. They say it as gas. The point here is, one is it English, the other is the content. The third point is, I as a marketer have to have some understanding of the dynamics of that particular customer, and then the CEO is so sharp that he's ensuring that your centricity is completely different. And this is what a CEO is expected to be hands-on with. That's the age that some of us, we are all living with, that actually translates to your journey, right? If you're doing an onboarding platform, a DIY platform, this is a bot platform which can actually take NLP constructs, English key tokens, and then it can construct. That's where customer centricity also comes in. And then some of the examples that my panelists are talking about. So it's just a phenomenally different world that we are living in. I think it's just going to get even more and more hyper-personal, and it's very, very important. Right? With that, maybe any other examples that some of you want to talk about from your experience, a failure or a success? I thought I'd share a failure because that NLP construct that I wrote was wrong. So I admitted it. Yes, I said, fine, this is wrong, right?
I think I just want to add on while I do participate a little bit in marketing forums, but not that much this of time. Thank you for being part of it. But me being a marketer, I do at least 20-25 different format sessions, thought leadership sessions in the field of HR and learning and AI and a lot of that. And I used to write a lot of that presentations and script, right? So one is doing it something from the back end side of it, and obviously taking something from product, taking something from that. But then, as a marketer, and now content creation has become a lot more easy because you can do it with tons of tools, right? I think the difference over the last few years which I have made in my role was to also, while it is not part of my JD, but an evangelist. And I think marketer has to play a role of an evangelist. And just continuing to your point, understanding what a customer is really looking at. Because a lot of times, even Tech HR conference I was there, and there was a customer who's sharing a pain which that person has not shared with a sales head, with their success managers, but he's sharing with me because he feels that I am probably a leadership position, but I understand that pain than a sales guy, right? So becoming an evangelist and understanding, I'm not saying that everybody has to go and speech, but the more you talk, the better understanding you get that what is really happening in their heads and what problem, what my next. My key is that what questions I get and what these ABM events I run, that inputs I am continuously writing what campaign is coming out of this. Like a journalist when they take interviews, their key is headline. If for first 20 minutes headline has not come in their head, that interview is a failure because that article will never get published. Right, as a marketer we know. So we have to also start really looking at going deep dive. Now this is in some way, I'm saying in person. It can happen in a large format, it can happen in a small formats. But then how we can do this digitally, because there are tons of tools now. Right? Are you listening and how you integrated? Because MarTech has become such an important thing. I know it becomes tough for a small organization and there is a graduation process because some of the tools are really, really expensive. And I come from a company where they spend a lot of money on MarTech. But if you look at MarTech, there is a MarTech landscape which get published every year, right? I'm watching not from 2011 when it started, but at least from last 5-6 years I'm watching that. Yeah. So that was in 2011. I think it has some 150 products, and this year 14,000 something. While there are a lot of tools which get overlapped with a lot of other departments, because ultimately, as I said, that there is an overlap happening with other departments, and the internal stakeholder which you were talking about, customer does not mean only end customer. And when I said that GTM, it needs to align with GTM, that GTM is not algorithm, you are defining, right? That is sometimes a sales, because that comes from the number as well, that where this money will come from. So your goal is to align with the GDM and obviously getting that input kind of thing. I think that is very, very important. And I used to always feel that feedback was not coming when you are not doing that evangelism. Because you are then creating some content, some PPT, some stuff, and that probably I regret because a lot of people, in fact some of the sales leaders used to say, oh, why you don't do that? I said, कर रहे हो ना आप लोग, आपको मिल रहा है ना सब कुछ, फिर क्या चाहिए? But I think that is something which, and you can do it much earlier in the life than probably what I did in the last 5 years.
It's to echo, right? That exactly happened in the example I said. The guy exactly understood my pain in the post office. He first evangelized the fact that there is a digital footprint solution for this, showed me that, made me do it then and there. He said, sir, 15 minutes, you're done. We actually enacted the whole thing. How many of you have heard this word for developer evangelism? Developer marketing, right? So in the world of developer marketing, evangelism is the biggest thing because customer there is a developer. You need to evangelize, understand what a developer actually goes through. If you're marketing a tool like a GitHub or a DevOps platform or a conversational AI platform, this whole notion of marketing itself is fundamentally different, right? Because the needs are very, very different. The audience is very, very different. Yeah, I think you touched the last part of the thing. I wanted to also ask about some tools. So, Sesha, both of you have any experiences as well as any tools, frameworks, platforms that you're using for this whole build?
So, bunch of tools surely get used. One, there should be one dashboard. And I'll give you an example that, and I work with multiple CMOs in the same company. That sometimes your marketing numbers are all going up and the sales numbers are straight or going down. Right? That's not success. There is a problem somewhere, right? And a lot of times the problem is actually with what your numbers are saying than what sales is doing. Right? You can say, oh, conversion nahi ho raha hai. But and because I run the whole business development as well. So I don't give leads and do events. I actually get pipeline and I'm responsible for marketing source revenue without commission. Although my team gets commission. So that's where I think we are going of how you convert marketing department from a cost center-ish to a profit center. What money I spend here in the regions has to be multiplied by the marketing source revenue, which is purely marketing source. Then there is obviously influence revenue, then there is retention, so you can do a lot of calculation and Excel sheet and play around with it in terms of what works and how you are able to convince it. So I think that becomes an important piece in terms of how much skill you have in the game as well. But coming to the tools, one dashboard, right? Whether it's Power BI, whether it's Tableau, whether it's because a lot of data comes from your Salesforce, from Marketos, but then you have tools like Cyient, we use Cyient right now. How is that getting used with your MDR, SDR function? And in my organization, since I own all of that as well, my SDR, MDR manager grills the sales people, just like their VP are grilling, but on the marketing source opportunity. Right? So that is the level up, which means that you have to start really looking at a value because, and sometimes there is a frustration, obviously there is a good fight happens. But then you can't live without each other as well. But important thing is that what you do from a conversion perspective, and I think ABM, if you look at that, knowing your customer progression is as important activity of a marketing today, whether it's happening digitally or whether it's happening in person, than ever before. Because we were only looked at as kitni leads ला रहे हो, कितना visibility हो गया, right? All of that, and this is the acquisition. But do you think that for a company which is say growing 10-20% new business, right? Even a product company at 10% new business, out of that if half has to come from marketing or 30-40%. So are you responsible for 3% or 4% of the revenue as a marketer or as a CMO? Probably not, right? So you have to start relooking at it. And we did change a lot of that matrix. So lot of tools are there. Again, this whole map of 40,000 is a problem, but which industry you are in and where you spend money on. Now, whether you do a lot of digital spend with, at least in my industry, as a learner-focused industry or a HR industry, does not work in India versus in North America. America works with, I'll give you an example of how the customer centricity works and how this dollar works. In US, 60% of the pie is coming out of website, 65-ish websites, organic campaigns, and paid campaigns. That whole is 18 to 22% in India. That is about 75-ish in Australia. That's about 50% in APAC. That's about 55-ish, 60%, 50% in EM. Now you can't just apply the same rule, right? So what you are doing and which kind of customer you are getting, like this year I was able to increase a 60% increase on the ADS because we changed the GP itself, and that input came in for the new acquisition business from marketing, saying that why this ADS is not growing and growing at 20% and all that, and if you want to really do big deals, what we need to do? Okay, let's create a channel strategy. Let's give this average deal size of $10,000-$20,000 deals to channel partners if you want to run it, right? And let's focus on improving that to 30,000 ADS to 50,000 to 70,000 on different segments. So you have to go really deep into how business operates. And when that business is operating, that is operating to solve a particular problem. And do you have that connect? That direct input of the CSM and the sales is coming on a weekly basis or not? It cannot be, because a lot of times you cannot be in the market for that long. You can be good for that customer advisory council meeting, which is once in a quarter. Then you get, obviously, there's a different industry, different things, but say for us, if not 80-20, maybe 30% of the customer will give you 70% of the revenue, right? Or maybe 65-35, that range in different product lines is different. So you can be only touching those high value, which is $1 million deals, but not with a large. Now, how will you do with that? Go with that. Maybe a digital way, or there's another information. Are you leveraging the data points which is getting collected by other people? And that's what I said, there's so much of data point, and I think one of the key things to understand is that there's a lot of noise, and unfortunately there's so much of data. Can you identify and create a signal out of that noise? And I think marketing, as marketer, because you touch with everybody, you are in the best position to actually identify that signal.
Over to you.
Sure. So I think when we talk about the need for tools, right, we have to again go back to the customer centricity. Why do we need a tool? What is the objective or the purpose? And then even you spoke about the content as well. And you also were casually mentioning about Netflix before we started this panel discussion. So what do we watch on Netflix, or if we are not here today? Maybe we were at home and trying to go through the catalog on Netflix. Sometimes you may end up choosing even something in a language that you don't understand because probably that is contextualized or appealing to you. So in a commoditized market where there's tons of content floating around, how do you make sure your content is relevant, or at least it is visible to a customer who may want to drop a click on it? If that you consider as an objective in terms of why do you need to put up a market stack, then I think that's when you have to look at what would appeal to a customer. And the customer here is not just one individual, as somebody has mentioned. There are needs around the project at a strategic level, at the organization level. Same thing also boils down to functional level or department level, and then to the individual who's going to be signing up your check. The needs will be very different, but the problem can still be the same cloud migration. But what it means at each stage differs, so your content has to be contextualized to all of them. So some examples, I know we're probably running out of time, but what we use at Cigniti is we use a ABM platform called 𝗣Vih𝗲𝗶𝗀𝗃, which gives us intent data. So if you want to launch a campaign, it's not that we want to just pray and pray by launching it to 10,000 companies, the same message, because it doesn't appeal to them. We look at what are the search keywords words that are surging through the intent data. Accordingly, customize the content that we do by infusing those keywords, not just in the content, but also in the meta tags and everywhere. And then see how we can use this content to those companies, promote this content only to that set of companies where we actually think there's going to be an appeal. And of course, we spoke about 6sense, so we have listening tools like 6sense. You can set triggers on Sales Navigator. We also have this wonderful tool. I think Sai recently enabled the conversation around something called Factors.ai, with a lot more AI tools coming in. So Factors.ai actually helps you navigate the entire customer journey, in the sense it tells you how many of your ads were consumed, how many times the people from those organizations came to your website in the last 6 months or so, how many touch points you established before that got converted into an inbound lead. So I think we can keep going on this, and this world is also very fascinatingly evolving with more AI tools coming in. But I think the future is going to be a lot more interesting, especially when you have a whole lot of content being pushed into the market without proper differentiation. Then it's what makes you smart is how you differentiate and ensure that today evening when you get back and then you look at your Netflix catalog, what catches your eye, what makes you click. I think the same thing applies as far as the enterprise marketing content as well, in the race to capture the mind share.
Yeah, just wanted to closing note on a lighter note. You might have 10 tools, 100 tools, or anything that you're proficient about. But I'll tell you a real story that happened actually to me also while I was doing this same area marketing. You have the tools, you have everything in place, and you do a great strategy and everything. But I think the timing is important. The planning is good, but while you are executing, the timing is also important, because by the time we arrive at having all the review process, the approvals, everything done, when we were about to launch the marketing campaign, the customer organization has changed completely. There was a complete reorg of the organization from the customer end, and whatever plan that we had done, we'll have to start from scratch. So whether it's a sales navigator or any other tool that you are using, you will have to keep your eyes and ears open and see that you are happy using the actual tools efficiently, so that whatever you apply has some value added to it.
Absolutely, I think very aptly summarized. I think this thing can go on, but I think the essence of the conversation that we had is knowing the customer. Absolutely yes. Being being customer centric is just the DNA that we need to exhibit. Some of the failures and successes that we discussed, and obviously it just cannot happen by itself. There's a lot of take care in the market coming in, and in the age of AI, which is all predictive. I think marketers have a great repertoire that can be used. But one thing I want to finish off telling that as marketers, remember two things. The narrative is ours, no tool that can replace that. And an empathetic factor is very, very important in a marketer's landscape, because that swings the factor to why a customer should be with you, which is what I experienced today. The gentleman was empathetic at me, and it was just a phenomenal experience. There was no frills, very peaceful experience. And he just went about his job, right? So thank you so much. I think that's what we have. Maybe if you have questions, thoughts, anything that you want to add, feel free to chime in, and then we can probably give it back to science. And do we have time for that?
We'll take one or two questions.
Sure.
Hi. Thank you for the session. It was really wonderful actually to gain some knowledge from your guys' experience. Since we are talking about the customer centric and knowing the customers, is it related to the existing customers which we already have in our organization, or getting new from the market? And as a marketer, what should be our priority? Get know the more customers who are already there with us, or go to the market, as you mentioned, Ankur, do the research and all those activities and get more knowledge or data and all those things, and then look into being more customers.
So as a product company, both, right? Depending on the goals as well, where you focus on, because it has to align to the GTM, right? Is there a business which you have more annual contracts, 3 years, multiple years, auto, we are just retaining them. If there is something which is happening in terms of growing them, right? Because there's a lot of IT space. So a lot of growth targets, again, GTM alignment on understanding. But you ask me a very large portion of what is understanding the markets and behaviors. You can obviously look at individual customers, high value customers and things like that, where the growth is, because you know that your win percentage can be very, very high. But you have to understand the market dynamics broadly when you set stats. And then you take samples of it. And marketing will be the right people, because there is a lot of people who are touching a customer. CSM is touching, leadership is touching, sales is touching, all of that. So you have to get that information from them and what role you can play. But from an acquisition perspective, it becomes a lot more your responsibility, because sales guy is only getting the newer opportunities of what he knows. They keep on shuffling, or a lot more growth only comes.
See, one thing what I would like to mention, Sai, is basically it's not about the customer who actually brings and gives you money. It's also about an potential employee who want to join a company, right? Say what is extremely important is the collaboration across the organization. Say that, say what's in the pipeline, what is your 5-year plan, what's the 3-year plan, what are you getting? Employer branding has become extremely important in today's market, because a lot of captive units coming in across India, trying to serve their shops, vendor consolidation, right? Am I a prime vendor, or next day I have a vendor? I'll give you an examples of Kerala Business Solutions or Chubb of the world, so we were badly beaten by Legato in the past. So they are extremely doing well. So I think most importantly, is there a town hall happening across the organization? So what is my role today, and what is my future roadmap? So this is extremely important. Otherwise, customer would not see a potential employee the next day, because he would leave the organization if you do not have a futuristic roadmap. Is what I think.
Yeah, bang on. I think we touched about it. Probably we take one more.
Okay, so we have talked a lot about customer needs, right? But what about customer aspirations? Because that is where their future needs evolve, like to your point, right? And the other point also I wanted to bring in is where we are talking only about understanding customers, but what about customers? Because at the end of the day, they are also trying to sell to somebody. So have you, what are your thoughts around that? How do you enable that? Because understanding customer itself is a huge task. Now coming and understanding the aspirations and also the next level. So any insights there?
You got a big session. Yeah, quick insight on that, right? So for example, messaging. So we say, for example, enabling frictionless digital customer experiences. This messaging line is actually for customers and customers. So for example, if I serve a neo bank, fintech bank, which is app only. But here, when we say frictionless digital customer experiences, it also means to the end customer of that bank who's actually going to consume that app, just like I did today morning. And if he or she is absolutely happy with that, or it could be a large airline that we work with, because today's young customers are so restless, like the audience that we have at the back, or the people at the back, right? So they just go to the social media and just put it back, right? So as marketers, I think it's very, very synonymous in today that your end customer is kept in the mind in your messaging and in your positioning. So there's no two things about it. Coming to aspirations of the customers, I come from product management background. So that's where the role of product managers come in. It's about the untold needs that I set. So you got to look ahead and figure out what is the next thing that the customer would love to use. And that's where I use the word proactive marketing is reactive marketing. So proactive is all about also understanding the aspiration of a customer, not just the need of the customer.
Just to finish it off, right? Sai was spot on. I spoke about how JPMCs and Bank of America are threatened by the neo banks that we spoke about. Similarly, insurance in the US, people who are making maximum money were the agents who are selling insurance. Now you don't have an agent, it's your omni-channel experience which onboards a customer and delivers. So when I work for an insurance company, I'm not transforming the systems of the insurance company for the back end. I'm actually doing it for them to acquire new customers who are actually the millennials and the Gen Zs who are going to be the new customers that the insurance companies wants to attract. Similarly, if I work for an airline, I'll be working for a passenger who's again probably a young business traveler who wants the airline to understand his needs and aspirations even before he checks in terms of his seat preference, his meal preference, everything. So the service companies are now working towards more of addressing those needs of an enterprise's end customer, rather than doing just a cloud migration as an example, which has got nothing to do with an end customer. Everything is interlinked, and final objective is even the data that sits on the cloud is supposed to tell the enterprise in terms of what each of their customers would prefer today, so that they go and create a hyper-personalized service. So just wanted to close with this.
And that customer may not have to be their customer, that can be their employee. Like in my case, learner, like employee of that company, are actually that customer, because the want and need is coming by an individual. Aspiration, all of this is ultimately getting consumed at an individual level. So you have to go to the last point and solve that problem. Because that's where the need gets bubbled up. Whether it's an internal, whether it's an external.
Well, lovely. I think you want to have a question. Yeah, maybe that could actually. Good.
Well, there have been so many takeaways and all words of wisdom, and these are all practical examples. Whether you are from the service industry, some of you are from the product industry, so these insights and the POVs, they are real life. And hats off to you, the examples that you brought in, okay, that interaction with the people at the post office. So I would just want to add, or it would be just give a thought from whatever discussion you had. There's this rule from Stephen Covey, I think it must be me. So fifth rule that says seek first to understand and then try to be understood. Okay. So what happens as an organization? I have also seen it happening in my company also, and a lot of mid-market companies, they usually suffer with this problem. So they are more focused with outside, inside out, that they just want to focus what they want to sell. Forgetting about what the customer is expecting, what the customer are expecting, and all these things. So it's very important that we need to understand the customer as well as the space where they are coming from. At the same time,
I think time out.
time out. Right. So there is another word that resonated was the evangelism. I guess forgetting about we all are marketers. We know how to do all the marketing. We have learned marketing from B school, and we talk about the 5 Ps and all those stuff put together. But it's really important we become evangelists, and then that is only going to happen where we are seeking deeper knowledge into the space. I mean, into the industry, into the function. Okay. Other than that, we won't be able to do the right kind of a messaging. Yeah, do that. Thank you.
I think we need to note on the fact that we'll all be evangelists. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. We have coffee and biscuits over there. We'll take a group photo now and then we'll move.
Thanks, Sesha. Thanks. Thank you.